Okay.
Leaving that in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pixelists podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts, Will, Blake, and today we're talking Wizard, Witch, and the Wild One, which I don't want to launch into the same exact spiel I gave in our recent Critical Role episode, but in that one, I touched on the fact that it's been a while. So similarly, it feels like it's been a while since we've talked WWW, even though, I guess it's the typical 2-week break, but it just feels longer.
Yeah. And the episodes are every 2 weeks. And I guess we just kind of slate it in when we can. But yeah, we're the day before a new ep, which is a lot more on brand for us for sure.
We're trying to be better. Maybe one day.
One day. So how are you today, my friend?
I'm good, dude. We just spoke about this a little bit, but the rain is actually starting to come down now where I'm at. So I've got this nice kind of rainy day vibe.
Little cozy vibe for our episode today.
Exactly. I made a cup of coffee. It's on the brink of being too late, but because it's raining, I was like, I'm going to do it.
I think you should just accept who you are. You know, you're a second cup, afternoon cup kind of guy.
I am.
That's
but
okay.
I have a 3 o'clock cutoff, and it's 3:20 right now. But so,
okay,
you know, a bit of an.
So you don't really have a 3 o'clock cutoff then.
It's a special exception. But no, not really. I mean, I'll break it for sure. It's a general rule, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah. But how you doing?
Do it. I was gonna say I could break it for like a tasty cup of coffee. Like my wife will make me like a little cold brew with a little bit of foam on top, some chocolate in there.
Y'all have a frother?
We do.
It's a game. I mean, I drink my coffee black, so I guess I can't really say this, but it's a game changer. At least Ashley loves it, so it always seems so fancy.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm good. You know, I've already complained to you about other things that are happening, so no sense retreading old grounds. But is that a saying? Is that an did I just?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like it makes sense. You know,
it was a sentence.
Yeah,
we got that much. So, but no, I'm excited for WWW today and CR. I've seen a little bit of it. We had a pretty cool moment in the last CR episode, and we got Diablo Season 1 dropping on Thursday, which I'm excited about too.
Oh, I thought it was tomorrow for some reason. Thursday?
Patches tomorrow, so it'll be like live on the Eternal Realms, but like the seasonal content won't open till Thursday afternoon.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
yeah, lot, and then lot going on, and also I mentioned this I think in our Critical Role coverage, but I know we have probably a slightly different audience for this compared to that, so I'll say it here as well. Any Jujutsu Kaisen fans out there? I've launched into breaking down the season 2 episodes. Thus far, I don't think we have any JJK fans in our audience yet. So if you are, come join me. Because season 2 has been great. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, it's an anime. Season 2 just started. If you're at all interested in that kind of thing, I would highly recommend it. Obviously, start with season 1 if so. But yeah, we got season 2 airing, and if you are familiar with us from the Vox Machina breakdowns we did, I'm doing the same type of thing for this. So
it's funny though, I saw your breakdown, and then like the algorithm is feeding me now because there's a guy I like to watch on YouTube who he's like a home chef, and he does like these like very like relaxing like 30-minute videos where he like makes this amazing meal, but he's like he doesn't talk at all, so it's kind of ASMR-esque in the sense of like the sound of like cracking the egg and all that kind of stuff,
right?
But on my recent or on my suggested, it was him doing a meal from Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh really?
Is
it like Babish?
No, it's not Babish.
Okay, I mean, the way you described it didn't sound like him, but I know Babish makes things from
Babish. Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
but this was another guy who's pretty well known for like his style. I didn't click on the video; I just saw it on my suggested and was like, I see you, Google. So,
Well, I was gonna
anyway,
say if you're just on,
I'll find the link and I'll send it to you.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say though, if you're on just the Pixelists YouTube, it's probably just because of stuff I'm watching too, you know.
Oh
But
yeah.
you might have been on your own personal
I
one.
don't
I
know.
don't know,
I don't
but
know. Anyway, thank
um,
you guys for listening as me and Will just explored this totally random segue.
exactly.
Anywho, well, any other announcements or should we dive in?
I think I'm ready to get going.
Cool. Well, my friends, for this episode of Wizard, Witch, and the Wild One, we always like to start out with a little bit of a recap because episodes can be so long. So if you're tuning in to just the recap, we do cut this out and put it as a separate video on YouTube. So if that's where you are, in the description, you can find the link to the whole episode discussion, which we'll break it down and talk about what we loved about it, what we think about it. So having said that, this is episode 10 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One of the Reaching Green. The episode is going to open up with Ursulon, who's just finished recovering Naram's sword, Wavebreaker, from Will Gallows. And he's proudly, somewhat drunkenly making his way back to the Chantry, where he goes back to his room and finds a bottle of wine before falling asleep in a chair. Notably not falling asleep in a bed, a little detail of our spirit friends. We also jump over to Suvi, who we find out, although she's been told to do nothing till Steel arrives, she's unable to sleep in the governor's mansion and ultimately decides to head back to the Chantry as well, where she finds her room, the door off its hinges, splintered, broken into, and finds a note from Ame, who had come in there to talk to her, basically saying, hey, I went after the fox. He's going to go see Orima. And this note is sort of like thumbnailed, or it's not an expression. It's placed in a section of the book that talks about the gifts given to Naram, including Wavebreaker. Suvi sees this, freaks out, rushes over to Ursulon's room, wakes him up, and is like, we have to go. Like, shows the book and is like, we have to go. And then she's like, wait a second, you have Wavebreaker. Like, what happened? And Ursulon is very proudly like, yeah, Will Gallows likes me. He thinks I'm a big deal now. But despite that, Suvi's like, all right, well, we got to go help Ame. We have to go after her. So they get up and they rush out into the dark of night to help Ame and recover the fox. Ame, meanwhile, is heading to the edge of Port Talon and is asking the fox, hey, where are you? And the fox gives some directions as a fox would, like follow the rabbit trail. And it's not helpful at all. But ultimately, the fox is pretty unwilling to help because the fox is worried, hey, if you find me, you're going to make me come back. And like, I'm keeping to his last episode line, I'm going to have you do what you really should be doing, what you want to be doing. So Ame continues. She stows away in the back of a wagon that is carrying the witchfire, I think the salt or something to that effect, out into the area outside of Port Talon. And once she's out there, it is effectively a barren wasteland. Brennan describes just the entire earth has been desolated by this witchfire, and there's no green in sight. It's so smoky and difficult to breathe that she actually puts on one of the witchfire veils, I think is what it was called, before finally ducking out of the wagon and heading into the kudzu that is growing up outside of this burnt area. And the kudzu, I'll just call it sort of the kudzu forest or jungle, because effectively everything has been overtaken. She can't find any sign of like old buildings or even like life, in the sense of Brennan describes this kudzu as being so thickly overgrown and in some cases 40, 50, 60 feet tall. Meanwhile, Suvi and Ursulon also make it to the wall. They get there and they're like, well, maybe, like, aren't we just allowed to leave? Like, why do we need to like stow away in something? So they go up to the guards and they're like, well, let's actually have some kind of cover. So Ursulon's like, hey, my pregnant wife, my pregnant sister wants to go back home to, I think it was Lambry or something like that, and to recover some like old family heirlooms. And the guards are like, first of all, it's 3 a.m. Like, why are you guys leaving at this time? And second of all, hate to say it, but Lambry is totally gone. Like all of the city, everything outside of the city is totally gone. Um, there's this back and forth of like the guards being like, I can't like rightfully let you leave. I mean, be very wrong of me. And Ursulan's basically like, hey, can you at least open the gate so she can see the desolation and realize there really is no hope? So they open the gate, and then Suvi just decides to just run for it. And so she just starts full speed running out of the gates. The guards are like, what are you doing? And Ursulan's like, I'll go after her. I'll get her back. And so he runs out too. And the guards are like, what is happening right now? Again, 3 a.m. But they basically make their escape into the Katsu. I will say that Brennan has them do some constitution checks because they haven't slept. They haven't got a full night's sleep. And the travel to the shrine is a day and a half's journey. So they're actually asked to make a roll. Suvi, either, I can't remember, there's a couple of rolls. I think at one point she's given advantage, and then another point, Brennan says, you know what, you don't even have to roll, because her military training, she would be used to this kind of like arduous travel. Ursulan rolls poorly and gets a point of exhaustion, actually. And as they go into the Katsu, he's actually going to grab onto some of the Katsu and try to commune with Orima. Orima is pissed, is like, who the heck are you? What's going on? What's happened to Naram? Very much furious and angry. And Ursulan is like, I couldn't do anything. There's nothing I could do. Like Ursulan was out of luck. The people were too powerful for me to help. And Orima's like, too powerful. Like, what do you think I would do if I got involved? So Ursulan's like, that's a good point. And Orima basically says, I'm going after Ame, and I want you to bring me Wavebreaker, the sword, as sort of like an apology for not doing anything. We cut back over to Ame, who the Katsu has grown over so much that it's blotted out the sunlight. And it's around this time in the darkness that she hears these creatures, essentially like these wooden dendrite-esque creatures that come up from the earth, from the Katsu. And she basically hands herself over to them, these minions of Orima, who bind her and drag her off, presumably towards the shrine. And that is where we go to a quick ad break before coming back to the second half. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah. You guys, you couldn't hear it because I was muted, but my fire alarm started going off. That's why I got up at the during your segment there.
It's no problem. And it's also coincidentally where I looked and realized I wasn't recording the recap. So
nice.
really good at that.
But yeah, so it was a false alarm, but if it happens again, I apologize. I'll mute as soon as I can. But yeah, all right, we pick back up after the break with Suvi and Ursulan still just trekking through. And Ursulan actually asks for Suvi's staff to assist him as he's walking because he is just struggling. Suvi, in addition to this, also reaches into her pack and takes out some of this moss, which is seemingly like Citadel, like
a ration or something.
Yeah, it's like Adderall or like speed or something. She describes it as like something that can keep soldiers like going through long marches and stuff. Or it at least has that placebo effect. So Ursulan tries some of that. And they keep going. We cut back to Ame, who is communicating with the fox again. And he says, he's waiting for her. But when the fox finds out that she's being like dragged by these creatures, he like immediately is like, oh, what the heck? And he's very upset and like takes off from wherever he is, presumably to where he thinks she's going. We then cut back to Suvi and Ursulan. But before that, actually, Brennan has Erika roll for pack integrity, and she loses an item. So this is some sort of mechanic. But she says she loses the seashells that she collected from that first coastal town they were in. So cut back to Ursulan and Suvi. Again, Ursulan is just really struggling. But they actually run into the fox, and I think the fox is eating like a dead rabbit or something, and Ursulon is like, give me some of that. So they both start eating.
Like a long decomposing rabbit or
Yeah,
something.
it was really gross, but
Super
Ursulon
gross.
was, he was about
Yeah,
it.
past the point.
So they all group up, and at this point, they're going to make their way into one of these kudzu like thickets. They make their way in, come to a shrine, and they basically, I think Brennan describes it as they've kind of passed through a doorway unknowingly, like through all this overgrowth. And it is indeed the shrine to Orima, and laid before it is Ame's unconscious body. And Brennan lets her know that she's essentially gotten a long rest as she's been placed here. And the fox immediately runs over and wakes her up. The group then begins communing with Orima, essentially, and Ame apologizes for everything that's happening to her and Naram. And she just says I want to speak for you in this conflict. Like, can I be your messenger? And Orima accepts. And she says, Ame says that she will help set things right, but please, like, in return, could you spare the city? The people, like, they didn't know what was going on. They had nothing to do with this. I'll teach them the ways. I'll remind them the ways. We will come and keep your shrine clean. But Orima isn't having it. And she is very angry, very upset. And she blasts Ursulon for being more human than Wild One at this point. And she lets him know that you will never truly be human either. Like, you're lost between these worlds and you've forgotten yourself. Even citing specifically that he's lost his breath. And she asks, what have you put your breath into? And Ursulon shows her the pauldron that he got from Sir Curran. And kind of in the reflection of the pauldron, the scene can be seen of a young Ursulon and Sir Curran approaching him and giving him the pauldron. And Orima asks, like, what is this? Did you give your breath to this man? And Ursulon says, not the man, but what he was, honor. And Orima finds this funny. She's known some wayward spirits in her time, but none that tied themselves up in a knot quite like this. And she does not envy him. Ame says that in her mind, there's no tension with what Ursulon's going through between the two worlds that he's a part of. He still treats the world of spirits with respect, and he has honor. And it's not something that you attain once, honor. It's something you maintain in how you treat others. And Ame thinks that Ursulon lives this way. So he should still be able to walk the path of the spirits while doing so honorably. And Orima asks her, how many people do you know that have ever truly walked any path honorably? And she cites that Ursulon has woven a great spell, and although it might not strike your kind heart as just, woven it is all the same. In any case, you've come all this way with my husband's sword. Whatever binds him, it can cut, but it can only be wielded by a spirit. Only one who draws power from their breath. So Orima asks Ame to bring her into the world by taking the offering at the shrine and scattering it. And Ame's like, well, hey, if I do that, are you going to have mercy? And there's like an insight check that happens here, and she rolls pretty low. But Orima says that her goal is to free her husband. She bears no cruelty toward the innocent people of the town, but also no care for them, as they have done nothing like to help Naram. She says she would not be a fool to make a promise to a witch she didn't intend to keep. But so she says, again, my goal is not to harm them, but I am mighty. And so what harm comes to Port Talon as a result of this is not my desire, but it would be a just punishment. And an interesting thing to note as this conversation is happening, Suvi actually starts to speak during one of the breaks in conversation, but Orima just instantly continues as if not hearing her at all. So Orima says, if you do not let me free, then I will not let you leave this place alive. And that's where the episode ends. Again, episode 10 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. And if you would like to hear our full discussion, it'll be linked down below.
Ooh, it's getting good.
Intense, man.
Yeah. The last two episodes have been really, really good. Shame they're so short, hour and a half, but it's also a lot more palatable too. But
yeah.
Great episode for sure.
Yeah.
Where to start?
just a couple kind of like general things that we pretty much say every time, but shout out Taylor Moore for the sound design, especially for like the
Mhm.
effects on Brennan's voice as Orima, and just the general atmosphere as always was so good. And again, this is again more of a general statement, so I'll just throw it out, but kind of on your point to it being shorter, that in conjunction with them still being level 1, I just want to say that like it's still been so compelling, so
Mhm.
interesting. So I don't know if those are two separate ideas, the shortness and the level 1, maybe they are, but I'm combining them.
Yeah.
And just saying like how well done this is, and how it doesn't matter like you can still have just as compelling and interesting a story at level 1 compared to level 20, if
Right.
you play it right. And obviously somebody as masterful as Brennan is showcasing just that. So um
There's an interesting tiny little segue there, though, of I'm so intrigued to see their character sheets because there's been some like really good roles that weren't nat 20s that I've also been like, man, what is their stat, like their character stats at
mm,
level 1 to be hitting like 24s and 25s, and
yeah.
I don't know. There was just a moment where I was like, wow, that was a high roll, and then I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking, like, how many high rolls have there been? Have there been a lot of high rolls? And I don't really know. Now it's something that now after the fact I'm noticing, but I don't know if it's true or not. But um, maybe for you guys who, I don't, would it be fair to assume everyone who listens plays D&D, or
Probably, I mean, probably not. I'm sure a lot of people have at least some experience with it.
yeah. I
But
guess I'll just say like the higher level you are, typically it goes without saying, the more you can do, and your rolls also typically get higher, your capacity to roll, which is why I think Will was pointing out that at level 1, since you're so much more constrained, it'd be very easy for the story to feel very slow.
yeah,
But yeah, it definitely has not been the case for sure.
yeah. And the stakes feel real high.
Yeah.
And this kind of it makes sense to say this here. One thing that Brennan made a point of, I think, a couple different times during their after show, the fireside chat, was that like for instance, that moment with the creatures that grabbed Ame and ended up dragging her back to the shrine. I believe Ame says like "Hail Naram" or whatever it was. She
Right.
says like the
Mhm.
Naram thing, and Brennan
Mhm.
said like in that moment, like that's what kept them from killing you. Like instead of just attacking you there, they then decided to drag you back. And he made another point about like that whole conversation, which Erika played very well. Like they were teetering between like, why should Orima not just kill all of you right now?
Right.
So I mean, I'm not saying Brennan's lying, but on one hand, it's kind of easy to say that after the fact. When like, is he really gonna kill all of like TPK the party here and like we start the story over? Um, so I don't really know what I'm saying there, but I do believe him in that like that could have gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, just folding that back into making level 1 compelling.
Yeah. Because also level 1, we saw it early in the campaign, but it doesn't take much to knock you out. Like to set
Right.
your hit points to 0. Um, which now the party seems to maybe. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to talk themselves out of it, but possibly starting next episode with a little combat sesh, essentially with maybe Orima's Guardians or something to that effect. I don't know. Either that or they're like, okay, just kidding, we'll help you. But I
I
don't know.
don't know, man. I don't, because again, they're level 1. So I mean,
Right.
I guess Orima herself, since she needs to be brought through, it's not like they'd be fighting her. So
Mhm.
I guess you're right that they would just be fighting probably those creatures that drug Ame here. Um, which now they do have all 3 of them, but Urslan's exhausted.
Mhm.
Um, and Ursulon and Suvi haven't gotten a long rest, which I don't know if they really if they used many things.
Suvi used magic missile fighting more pain.
Right.
And then because that was all still the same.
Yeah, I guess it was, right?
Yeah.
And then did Ursulon use anything in that encounter, or did
he used lay on hands?
That's right.
And he's also used it on himself since then. So I'm assuming, again, you don't have a lot of options at level 1. I'm assuming Suvi has maybe a spell slot or 2 left. Ame's 100%. She got her long rest, but yeah. It's not a good situation. I'll tell you that much.
It's not. I don't see them. I really don't know what they're going to do, because I don't see Ame just letting her in the world without some sort of assurances. But if that doesn't happen, I don't see them just like going their separate. Like, let's say they say no, combat ensues, they beat the combat, then what? Like, I don't see them just being like, well, we tried, like, see ya. Maybe then they re-enter the table of negotiations or something.
I guess I'm thinking,
what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, it's like, what's the alternative? Like, surely this ends with them bringing Orima in under some kind of agreement. They're a day and a half's journey deep into the Kutsu. I just feel like there's no realistic way for them to leave without Orima's blessing in some way. So, in my mind, now I will say they're going to have to lean more into Ame to ferry that kind of favor than Suvi.
Yeah.
I think Suvi's like one word away from getting killed. But yeah, I don't know. Well,
put a pin in Suvi for just 1 sec, but don't let me forget. Like, I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of because if Orima gets let in, it seems like it's going to hit the fan, and we also like, she seems very, very powerful. So it also seems like if that happens, then it's not like all 4 of them are going to go together. I would imagine Orima kind of off screen is going to go do what she's going to do. And then we're going to kind of see the repercussions of that. So, which I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but that would really set things off. So maybe it is some sort of compromise where, like, they won't let her in, but instead come to some sort of agreement where, like you said, they have her blessing or something. But it would be hard to imagine Orima like conceding coming over.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, she's stronger than Ursulon's dad. So I don't see how these group of level 1 nothings are gonna. You make a good point. Yeah. I'm out. For that reason, I'm out.
Bro, and what's crazy to think on top of this is the Sword of the Citadel Steel is en route. And so, like, we could have this huge, like, if Orima comes, or, like, there's just a lot going to be happening. In addition to that, we know Steel said, Suvi, lock down, sit down, don't do anything till I get there. And even if they somehow miraculously clear up this with Orima instantly and instantly head back, I don't know if they'd make it back before Steel got there, because it's already been like a day and a half to get to the shrine. If it's another day and a half to get back on the fastest timetable, they still might not get there. And when Steel's going to arrive and see Suvi's gone and her door's been broken into, like,
math. That was really good. I didn't put that together. That's a great point. Yeah, so it will have been 3 days by the time she makes it back. You're right. Unless Orima has some means to, like, bamf them back.
True.
But
so a lot of chaos could be about to just set off. But on the Suvi thing, to cycle back to that now, you said one stray word, she might get murdered. What do you think was going on with her? It seemed more than just like Orima was ignoring her and cutting her off. It seemed like Orima couldn't hear her, like almost as if Suvi was like magically shielded from being seen or heard as some sort of protection, maybe? I don't know. How
It's
did you take that?
possible. I think Aabria like jokingly said like, "Did she put me on mute?" Um, which to me, what the easiest explanation often is the explanation. I know that has to be a saying. Um,
Occam's razor, basically.
Thank you. Yes, but it's a little worded a little differently, but basically
Yeah.
that. She is this petulant member of the Citadel that notoriously abuses spirits of the Citadel. So I could see Orma having very little patience for her. Maybe there's some kind of like ward on her. I'd be really curious the means of that. I think in general, I'm amazed at how just risky Aabria is playing Suvi. Don't disagree with it, so to speak. I think it's pretty wild. And we've been saying I've been saying for several episodes, I think there's a find out kind of moment coming where she's throwing all this cloud around and something's going to happen there. I think Aabria is also aware of that and possibly inviting that from Brennan, because it'd be a great development for her character. So I don't think she's. I think there's an interesting insight here. Not to get too long winded with what we were just talking about, but sometimes we have that player at the table who is obnoxious, who's like, "Oh, this is the demigod. I'll fight him. I'll kill him. One punch is all it'll take." And you're just like, oh, okay. And then there's someone like Aabria who has deep trust with Brennan. She's probably, Aabria has created so many compelling characters, has probably thought like 10 steps further, and is probably herself laying some of the railworks. Yeah. Railworks, the wrong word. Road signs.
Tracks.
I don't know. Tracks. Thank you.
Road signs.
Laying the tracks down, inviting the DM, which by the way isn't uncommon. I've had players at my table who've been like, "Hey, here's some things that I would love to see happen in terms of the development."
Yeah,
like in game, and then they trust me to kind of create the process for things that they're passionate about. So that's my extremely long way of saying I don't know the means of what's happening. I think there is something really interesting happening that could be leading to like a big character development for her.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely one of the her character flaws, if we can call it that, kind of that aspect of her.
Right.
But I agree that the simplest explanation here is that Orima did talk to the hand, like the adults are speaking type of thing. But I don't think that's the case, just because of like how explicit Brennan described it. Like if it was just that, it would be very simple to explain that that's what happened. Like Orima cut you off, like she doesn't care at all what you have to say. It was that like, Brennan is so like eloquent with how he describes things, but like he even mentioned like, in the normal flow of conversation, like there was a pause, and so you spoke. It wasn't like that. Like Orima just kept going as if you never said anything at all. So I don't know. And
it could.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, to that point of you saying like if she did just silence her because like this is the person of the Citadel that has caused her all of this trouble. Given how we've seen Orima react and as angry as she is, would she do that, or would she like instantly try to kill this person? Like I don't know if she would have the wherewithal to just be like silence. It'd be like, no, my minions, kill that one right now. Like this is part of the people that's trapping my husband.
Well, she knows Ami's a witch, and she said something, I don't remember what the line was, but it was something like, I know better than to like not hear a witch out, or something like that. Something about like a respect for a witch or something.
Yeah, it was I know better than to make a promise that I don't intend to keep to a witch.
Yeah, so I could maybe see like she's here with a witch, so I'm not gonna like outright kill her. It could also be, if we're going the route of it's something unintentional, if it's not like a ward that's been put on or something that's been put on Aabria, on Suvi, it could be, if you think about like the mechanics of how it happened, it was a connection spirit to spirit, Ursulon to Orima. And then Brennan said, if you're willing to kind of like lean in, the rest of you can also kind of hear her. We know Ame had like a very ritualistic back and forth to connect with Orima.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's that Aabria, it's just building on Brennan's comment that like, hey, you're from the Citadel, you know, you're so out of your depth, you don't know anything here. So although she can hear Orima, she doesn't know like how to connect the dots to actually speak to Orima. Like maybe something's happening there where she's just like the odd person out.
I could see that. And the only other thing I thought of is there is some sort of like ward, but like where would that have come from? And I was thinking maybe her father's ring, or maybe I know she doesn't like have the cloak anymore because like they, you know, like Ursulon has his piece or whatever, but like maybe just something that her mother gave her, or that the necklace that she has, I think, is from her mother. So maybe some sort of innate protection that was woven into those items her parents gave her that like would automatically activate in the presence of like a great one that they know would, you know, could be very dangerous or something. But you know, in any case, I thought that was really interesting, and it felt like there was something more there to that moment. So
did they talk about in the campfire chat just her brazen disrespect, like putting the flame in the brazier, and like she said, like I want to make it like glow green, like the witch fire, like so openly disrespectful.
I can't remember. I don't think they spoke about that, but it's possible that I just don't recall.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah.
It's ballsy.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, one last thing I put in my notes here about this Suvi thing was Orima explicitly comments on how Ursulon and Ame got here, and doesn't mention Suvi at all. And what I'm referring to is she says like one of you was drugged here against your will, but you were coming, like you wanted to come here, and one of you came here willingly but didn't want to.
Right. But she doesn't say want to use just the third wheel. It's like,
yeah, she just doesn't even mention Suvi at all, which could be didn't need to bring it up, but could also mean she doesn't see the third person. Like maybe she only sees two of them.
That's a pretty interesting, and it would, if nothing else, it would explain the lack of, I guess, contempt for Suvi for doing the green witchfire illusion. Like, never saw it anyway.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah. So I know I stopped there for a while, but that's all I had to say there.
Yeah. Well, so the parties, so we don't know, it can go a number of ways. Well, a couple of ways, I guess, for this next episode. They're a day and a half out from Bort Talon. It does still seem like Ame's vision could still be a vision of the future for what could happen.
I feel like it had to be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What else is top of mind for you?
This breath conversation. Is this the first we've heard that terminology?
I think so, for sure. Yeah.
So just it's super interesting because is it all metaphorical, or is there some like actualization with this? Like, because she said that only a spirit that like draws power from its breath can wield Wavebreaker. So maybe it's like their breath like is maybe their like spirit, or like their soul, or whatever you want to call it. But it's interesting that they spoke about like putting it into things, and for Ursulon it was the pauldron, aka like his concept of honor that he wants.
But does it mean that it's literally in the pauldron?
I don't know.
Like, is it enchanted now? That's something I was wondering.
It does seem to be special. Like, I don't know if the fact that like that scene played out in it was just, you know, flair for the scene, or if it was like implying that the pauldron is magical or enchanted in some way. I can't remember. I didn't draw this connection, but I'm trying to remember where I saw it. If it was on like Twitter or wherever. But somebody drew the comparison to something the Pilgrim Under the Stars said when he first showed up. It was, and again, I'm not looking at it, but it was something to the effect of, "I've held my breath since like the first moment of the world," or something, which, even without this context kind of makes sense. Like, okay, okay. But now that makes like, seems to have some new context with like, this new meaning to breath that we have here, which spirits can die, right? I mean,
I don't know.
Seems like, I mean, at least mechanically, it seems like Ursulon could die, but I guess we don't know what necessarily that means. But the Pilgrim Under the Stars is seemingly very powerful, very old. So like maybe held his breath means like he somehow like kept his breath secluded or safe or something, and that's how he's like so ancient and so powerful.
Well, or maybe it's even more like showboating than that, in the sense of like Orma asked, like, where did you put your breath? Like maybe most spirits put their breath somewhere like hidden, and that is like a source of their power. But here's the Pilgrim Under the Stars, the King of Night, saying, I've kept it, I have it. I mean, I don't know, but that's a really great insight from whoever that was, though. I love that detail, because I remember back when he said that, I thought that's an interesting way to say that. So
yeah, for sure. So I guess I don't really have much more to say on it, but I just thought it was interesting, and I'm curious to see how that develops with the breath. Is it something you can lose and like not die,
Right. One other detail was I definitely underplayed in my mind how the kudzu, like Brennan describing it being 40, 50, 60 feet tall in some places, and like Ame being in total darkness. Like, I think he said called it like darker than even night itself at some point, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Like, I definitely envision like, oh, there's these weeds growing into, and also like the outer wasteland outside of Port Talon. I am shocked that Guildmage Moro is like, oh yeah, that's weird. I mean, it's got to be like denial at this point for how awful it is.
Yeah, he seems so oblivious, but maybe I guess it's just like a representative of his intense focus on what he's doing, or maybe he is just kind of an oblivious kind of dude.
Yeah, I was looking at my notes here to see. I thought I wrote something else about the kudzu, but anyway, continue. I don't see.
Yeah, just kind of in that same vein, I was just thinking like Ursulon got like toasted, pretty drunk, stumbling out, is making his way home at 3 a.m. and then basically immediately launches on a 1.5 day trek through like arduous terrain, like very crazy terrain. Like he's got to be like almost not like the brink of death, but like got to be rough, like I can't even imagine like, you're super hungover and you have to go on a 2-day hike.
Bro, I have a glass of wine at night and go to bed and I feel bad the next day. I mean, yeah, this guy for sure.
100%. So, citing back to if they do have some sort of combat here, like again, it's not like I think that Brennan like is playing with oven mitts on and like wouldn't kill the party if that's how the dice landed and that's how their decisions led them. But also surely he's obviously not setting out to do that. So I'm just thinking like, man, if they do get into a combat, like are they going to die?
I think I would be less surprised compared to like Matt Mercer. I don't think Matt Mercer like pulls punches, so to speak. But knowing the reputation that Brennan has, just conversations around like Crown of Candy, which I think that it leads itself to that in the sense of like Game of Thrones being very bloodthirsty anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a bias, I think. But all I'm saying is, even though it's called The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, I wouldn't put it past Brennan to allow something like that to happen for sure. Now,
Yeah,
what does
yeah.
that do? What did that do for the branding of it? Like, the wild one died. It's, I don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah. So just sounds miserable, that whole experience that the Ursulon
Yeah.
is going through right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm tired.
also, I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but Orima was just terrifying due to the sound design, and just Brennan played it so well. There was one line in particular, I think, where like I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was about like Ame teaching the townspeople like how teaching them the ways, and like teaching them to take care of the shrine and stuff, being like, it's not their fault, like they just like forgot, they lost their way, and like Orima screams like, and whose fault is that? Like, it's still their fault that it got to that point. Very very reminiscent of Asmodeus kind of in Calamity, which another parallel was the whole like needing to be brought into the world. So I don't know if Brennan like drew any inspiration for that, or knew it was aware of the own parallels when he was kind of developing this, but I thought that was really interesting. Orima scary, I guess, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What else?
This is kind of a smaller moment, and it's two separate moments, but I really like the bond between the three main characters, which obviously they grew up together, they have a history, they of course all like love each other, but they also have just kind of re-met up and are realizing like differences in their worldviews, and there's been some friction. But there were two moments when it came down to it, they both like they had each other's backs, and that was really cool to see. And the two moments I'm talking about is Suvi basically saying, I'll burn this entire place down for Ursulon. I think it was when he was talking to the kudzu, and like it started strangling him or something. And similarly, Ursulon telling Orima when he was having that conversation that like, you take my life, just please leave Ame, like just please let Ame be okay. Which this doesn't surprise me that they would like be there for each other like that, but it was just cool to see that when it gets down to it, they're more concerned with each other, I think, than their worldviews.
I still think there's weird energy between Ame and Suvi. Like almost.
Definitely.
Well, I'm just like, what does Suvi ultimately have against Ame? Which is one thing I haven't quite figured out. I haven't quite put it together, like where that's rooted in. Because Suvi threatens to burn the place down for Ursulon. Ursulon offers himself up for Ame, but Suvi, knowing how precious Ame's responsibility is to tend and keep the spirits' shrines, does the witchfire illusion in the offering bowl, which I think is not just a huge disrespect to Orima. I think it's also a willing, she probably wasn't thinking in the moment, like looking at Ame, but if it was like, hey, this is my favorite restaurant, and then you had a bad experience and like started like smashing stuff and you set it on fire.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey man, I really like that place. So, I just don't know. I think she has like really some, I don't know, it's just weird energy. So I keep coming back to. So I'm curious to see that and also just them having had butted heads. Well, Suvi having a problem with Ame multiple times. Don't speak to me like that in front of other people, and don't challenge me, and all this kind of stuff. So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think that's one of the most interesting dynamics in the show so far. So I'm interested to see that continue to shape up. But I feel like, and I mean, I have no basis in saying this, but I feel like it just so happened to be that it was Suvi, Ursulon, Ame. I feel like if similarly, if Ame had been the one being like on death's door, or I feel like they would have stood up for each other. But I mean, I guess maybe we don't know.
I don't think she was going to be like, if she dies, she dies.
Right.
I don't think she's going to do that. I just know, I think there's very much a yin and yang type of, like, anytime Ursulon talks about defaulting to bear, or he did something this episode, and I can't remember what he said. He said something like, that was so stupid of me. And Aabria described Suvi like cupping his face and being like, "You're not stupid," like very sweet.
Yeah.
I don't see that same intentionality with Ame. And for the listeners, to be clear, I'm talking explicitly Suvi and Ame, of course, not implying anything about the actors, obviously. Right. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't know where the direction of this overarching story is going to go, but it really seems like they kind of represent two like main ideologies of the world, and how those are kind of butting heads, like the spirit world versus the material world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I like the kind of microcosm in the Suvi Ame relationship. And I mean, I guess we don't know like what we might find out and how that might affect how we view things. And it's not black and white, obviously, but it does seem to be that it's Suvi that's going to have the character arc of coming over to Ame's side and not the other way around.
100%.
But it would be crazy if it was the other way around. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, no. I think Aabria has really created an interesting canvas for Brennan to like collaboratively, like, I think this is like, it's so stupid to like make a claim like this, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this campaign, if the Suvi we know is night and day different, not like a different person literally, but that really excites me, honestly. I mean, Aabria is giving us really compelling content to talk about and wonder about, and it creates the opportunity for, and obviously the other characters are doing the same, but I think I'm just excited to see where it goes for sure.
Yeah, me too. Definitely one of the most interesting character arcs currently in the campaign is to see what happens there in that relationship between the two of them. Obviously, question for you that I can't remember when. I don't remember which conversation it was in, but it was basically when Orima found out Ame was a witch. Was there any mention of Grandmother Rin? Was it like in regards to how they got Wavebreaker, or just ever?
There was something about Wavebreaker. When they were talking about the sword, she said something like she was describing it, and she said something that made me think of Grandmother Rin. I don't know if she said it was lost or taken or something, but I don't think it was Grandmother Rin though.
Because I don't think what I'm thinking, I don't think happened, because I think it would have been like more explicit and I would have definitely remembered. But I was trying to just think of if Orima had any reaction or recognition to the Grandmother Rin name, and that's what kind of softened, for lack of a better word. Just because this is something I think we talked about in our last episode, but just wondering if there is any connection between like Rin and what's Naram and what's going on with Orima. It was interesting to find out that Wavebreaker can only be wielded by a spirit and the breath, because we were wondering like why couldn't Gallows figure out like this what he had.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Because
we were like, what's the deal with this? But
so it's interesting that Rin had it, since, and I mean, not that witches can't have artifacts and cool items, of course they can, but I don't know, it's just interesting that she had it, since I don't know, I don't know, like it's because it's not as if she could have wielded it to break curses, seemingly.
Certainly as a witch, she would know the value of a spiritual weapon.
Right. And I'm sure she did, but I'm just curious, like, and I mean, maybe it was to keep it out of, maybe she got it from somebody whose hands it shouldn't have been in, and it's not her purview to go now find a new wielder for it, so she just
Right.
kept it, type of thing. And I guess we don't truly know the relationship between Rin and spirits. I mean, obviously witches care after shrines and stuff, but it's probably not fair to say that they're all like they're
Yeah.
all buddy buddy or anything, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just interesting to think about is how she got that. But yeah, I was more curious on if Orima seemed to have any personal
Right.
reaction to Rin, but I can't even remember if Rin was brought up.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I thought about it feels like you're talking about something I remember, but I don't quite remember what.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm like
Yeah.
connecting to. It might have been something even from a previous episode. But so they have Wavebreaker. Given whatever happens with the Orima microcosm, seemingly, unless it's going to take a process of like Ursulon, one, either getting his breath, like if that's something like maybe Ursulon can't properly wield Wavebreaker because of his breath situation, in which case we've kind of moved the finish line a bit further to figuring out what's going on with Ame, which that would make sense. But if not, and he can wield it, could, in addition to this whole Naram story thread, could we start immediately getting whatever the heck's going on with Ame and Rin? And if that is at all loosey-goosey connected to Steel, who's about to show up, like, could any of those things...
Yeah. It'd be interesting if, like, current problem is solved. Now let's deal with those memories. Whoosh, and then Steel's right there as the... So we've talked about it. Yeah. Does Steel have something to do with this, you know?
I mean, I don't really want to like make a declaration at this point. It's still so early, but I would say that I'm leaning towards Steel. There's more to Steel than we are aware of. Whether that means she's like a bad guy, not saying that, but like there's more there. I don't think it feels too early in the story to reveal that to me, because that feels like a big thing, which doesn't mean it can't happen. So yeah, I guess for my money, I would almost kind of think that maybe Ursulon doesn't have the ability to wield Wavebreaker properly. But if that's the case, then Orima is going to basically be like, I have to come through. You guys aren't capable of freeing Naram. Like, I'm the only one that can wield Wavebreaker. And I don't really see that happening. So
I don't see her necessarily needing Wavebreaker either, though.
That's true. But she did explicitly say that it could like free him. But yeah, seems like she would, there's probably other ways to
she might be like, you're coming with me, you know, continuing to use them for that effect. But I don't necessarily see her being like, I'll take that. Thank you. And they're like, oh,
can we
use
use it first?
We have a soul stone. Thank you. Oh, wait.
Awkward.
So anyway. All right. Anything else from this episode?
Let me look through real quick. But yeah, just in general, I guess I have no idea what's about to happen. Like which direction things are going to go here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered the big things I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Well, you guys let us know what else jumped out at you or other thoughts you have about this episode in the comments. And don't forget, we do have a YouTube channel. Obviously, you're there. We do have a Discord where we talk about the latest episode, talk about a lot of D&D content. So you're welcome to join us, and everybody's welcome, whether you're new to this kind of content or not. Feel free to join the Discord and join that conversation with us. And then next up, like I mentioned, we have Diablo coming up, but then the next CR episode, which we got to talk about too, here in the near future. So anything else you want to add?
If anybody's listened to the it's not fair to call it a one shot, but the fair, the fair mini game that Erika is running, let me know your thoughts on it. I definitely plan on listening to it. I haven't yet. I thought it was a 1 episode thing, but they just released the 2nd episode, so I'm curious how many episodes it's actually going to be. So yeah, for anybody that's listened to that, obviously without spoilers, come let me know how it is, what you think, and like Blake mentioned, come do that in the Discord if you want to have a more fluid conversation than just YouTube comments. But yeah.
I was looking for a makeshift blindfold for our thumbnail.
Blindfold for what?
Because Ame gets blindfolded.
Oh.
You know, it was kind of a big detail for the episode. We could do something else. That's cool.
No, I mean, liked it. I just couldn't remember the blindfold moment,
yeah,
but I'm with you now.
That's stupid. Whatever. I have a big tree person costume I could put on, but would that be better for you? So, I got some little rain jacket. Hang on. We can make it
rain that storm like pass through real quick. I don't know if it's still raining at your house, but it like rained for like 2 seconds here.
So I can do like a little makeshift, little makeshift. This is the content you guys are here for, like a little. How's this?
Okay, hold on. I'm joining you sort of. I'm gonna be doing a Witchfire Veil.
Okay.
No one's gonna know what the heck I'm doing at all.
This is why we don't have jobs, guys. So you can't ever threaten our bosses. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Nice. Nailed it as usual.
Yes, sir. Alrighty, y'all. Well, as always, thank you for joining us. And we got the new episode tomorrow, so I don't know when. Hopefully, we'll be talking about it soon. But yeah, excited to see what the heck happens from here.
All right,
that's all I got.
See ya. See you later.
Bye, y'all.